really encouraging weekend to a really disappointing one. Obviously, it started for the Lakers. They lost to the Clippers at home, a game that they should have won. They led late, blew it. And then last night, suffering, I would say, a top two embarrassing loss for them on the season against the New Orleans Pelicans by 28 points. I was there last night. I went to now Crypto.com Arena. I was about to say Staples Center. I went to Crypto.com Arena for the first time with my roommate. We're both huge Laker fans. I wanted to see LeBron play. I hadn't seen LeBron play so far this year. And this was painful to watch. This was actually not only just a drubbing, but just like a gut-wrenching type of game to experience firsthand. Because I think that this game last night and against the loss to the Portland Trailblazers on the road, that 107-105 game, where it was the Lakers' big three against the Portland Trailblazers without Dame. They had just shipped off CJ. They had just shipped off Norman Powell and Robert Covington. It was essentially Lakers' big three against Anthony Simons, and the Trailblazers won that game. Those two games, to me, are the two most embarrassing losses and the most humiliating losses of the year for the Lakers, because they looked lifeless yesterday. They looked anemic offensively. They just seemed to have this kind of flippant attitude towards the game, towards their opponent. Just kind of played careless basketball. 23 turnovers, about 16 of them were in the first half. They couldn't throw it into the ocean. They were 7 of 34 from the three-point line. Every single shot looked like it wasn't going in, and that was pretty much the case. It was just one of the more shameful games that I have watched, to be honest, especially in person. And not to mention, to add insult to injury, to hear Laker fans actually boo the Lakers. This is the first time that I've been to a Lakers game where I heard that, where I heard the fans audibly yelling at players like Westbrook and other guys not to shoot. Literally being extremely disappointed every time there's a turnover, boos cascading down from the top of the stadium. Because I think that it's one thing to lose a game, but it's all about the manner in which you lose. It's another thing to get out-hustled, to get outworked. It's another thing for a team to come into your building and show just more pride and more desire to win. And that's what was lacking. So far, the body language all across the team yesterday was down. And just collectively, they played extremely careless basketball. I talked about the turnovers, 23 turnovers, and so many of them were unforced. So many of them were just freebies, just giveaways. Obviously, you have the usual drives to the rim, and you get stripped on the way up. Okay, that type of stuff happens. But a bunch of just errant passes that seem to be going to nobody. DeAndre Jordan from half court just throws it like 10 yards over the head of, I think it was THT in the corner. He immediately got pulled from the game. So they're just playing careless, and they were giving up wide open looks to the Pelicans. The Pelicans shot 48% from the three-point line yesterday, but a lot of them were wide open looks. It wasn't for a great defensive effort. So you turn the ball over, you give up wide open threes, you get out rebounded by 13, 51-38, and you're expecting to win a basketball game. This is an NBA team. The Pelicans are an up-and-coming team. Now, no one's saying that they're world beaters. No one's saying that they're going to make some serious noise in the postseason this year. But this is why they made the trade for CJ McCollum, is because they wanted to try to make that push to get into the postseason. Now, ideally, they thought they'd have Zion Williamson. I've talked about this before. No one really knows. It's almost like trying to find the Sasquatch. No one really knows what's going on with Zion Williamson, whether he's going to be back, whether he has to undergo another foot injury. No one knows. But this is a legitimate Pelicans team that has some good players. And if the Lakers expected to just roll over them at home, they were sadly mistaken. They are narrowly divided in the standings. So you would think for a Lakers team that has the hardest remaining schedule in the league, that they would want to try to take advantage of, in the eyes of many, a weaker opponent at home. And they just couldn't. And I'll say this, that LeBron James, as great as he is, and I'm not going to say that the entire game was lost because of his play. I understand the guy drops 32 points. It's hard to say when a guy drops 32 points that he played terribly. But again, he has set such a high standard for himself that we do hold him to a different standard. And from a playmaking perspective, from a body language perspective, he looked dejected. He was careless. 7 turnovers for LeBron, which is uncharacteristic of him. It is not something that we are accustomed to seeing from LeBron. He really had a poor game given the totality of what we expected. Again, he did pour in 32 points, so it's not like he wasn't productive. It's not like he didn't do anything's well in that game. He did. But again, this is LeBron James we're talking about. So the way that we analyze, the way that we view his game, we hold him to a higher standard. And I give him credit that individually he's been doing a lot. He's been holding up his end of the bargain. This year has been sensational for a guy in his 19th season. 29 points per game, the third highest of his career, the most points he has scored in 11 years. It's remarkable. 8 rebounds, 6.5 assists, but this is the impressive thing, 52% from the floor. So throughout all this chaos, he is still shooting 52% from the floor, 35% from 3, which is respectable, not great, it's respectable. 75% from the free throw line, one of the best marks that he's had in about 7 or 8 years since he was with the Heat. So individually, yes, he's been doing some positive things for this team. And the way that he played yesterday isn't a microcosm of how he has played, or it's not a snapshot of how he has typically played throughout the season. But I do think that he needs to set the tone. And when he's engaged, when he's activated, when he is not playing loose with the basketball, that typically rubs off on the other players. And yesterday, unfortunately, it didn't. Now, Dwight Howard came in. I liked his energy. 11 rebounds. I don't know why Dwight hasn't been getting more minutes. I thought he was really impactful on the glass. I thought he was impactful 2 years ago when the Lakers had him. Now, obviously, he is a liability in the sense that he can't shoot it. But at the same time, providing that defensive anchor, I think Dwight actually adds a lot of value to this team and to this roster. Carmelo off the bench, 13 points. Yes, he was cold, 1 for 5 from the 3-point line, but at least he's pouring in double-digit points, which is what we needed. And then we get to Russell Westbrook. And it pains me. It really tugs at my emotional affection I have for this guy, this emotional affinity that I've had for him throughout his career. It's been dwindling. And this guy right here, who I have his jersey, I've got a picture of him on another angle in my room. He's playing at UCLA. He has just been extremely careless with the basketball, and unfortunately, he just hasn't lived up to what we've all kind of hoped from him. And to watch his game diminish the way that it has, to see him play with little to no confidence at home, to hear the fans boo him every single time he touches the basketball, every single time he's putting up a shot or he commits a turnover, you hear boos cascading down. Every time I hear that, it really pains me. Because I don't want to see this for this man. I don't want my view of him to be tarnished from what he's done throughout this whole season to be tarnished, or what he's done throughout the course of his career to be tarnished by this one season. I don't want that for him. And I'm desperately trying to hold on to the positive memories that I've had for him, the joy that he's brought to me as a basketball fan for years. I don't want to gloss over his career based on what I'm seeing in this one particular season, but it's hard not to feel that tug. It's hard not to be disappointed in what I've been seeing. And again, to see people literally, to see fans next to me cringe and hold their breath every time he shoots it. I mean, I don't think you can insult a guy in any other way. And it's been troublesome. The turnovers, the 7 turnovers. He just 1 assist, 7 turnovers for Russ, the starting point guard of the Lakers. It's just unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. And again, I've loved this guy's competitive spirit for his career, but it's just inexcusable at this point. And he's got to, and he just has to be better. There's no sugarcoating it. He has to play better, and he's got to play better more consistently. And we're just not seeing it. And again, in fairness to him, he wasn't the only one that played poorly. But when you get booed in a home game for yourself, I don't know if there's anything more kind of shameful and humiliating than that, personally. And to see him just, again, drive to the rim aimlessly looking for fouls. At this point, he drives into the lane, not really with much of a plan, and just hopes to get bailed out by a call. He hasn't been getting that so far. And it's just disappointing. And this team is 9th in the West right now. It doesn't look great. Hard to continue to, I'll continue to root for them. I always will. We'll never lose that allegiance. But that was one of the worst Laker games that I've gone to, truthfully.